Super Mario Bros. Took the world by storm and was the foundation of one of the greatest, most consistent, and well-known series in all of gaming. Another well-known game series was released around this time as well, that was made mostly by the same people. Although it might not be as big as Mario, it's without a doubt Nintendo's number 2. The Legend of Zelda. This game was being made alongside the original Super Mario Bros. If you're familiar with both series, you should know that this won't be the last time this happens, and that when it does happen, the results are tremendous. I knew of the Zelda series before I actually played it, though I don't remember exactly how, but I do remember the first time I ever watched a Zelda game in action. That was while watching Some Call Me Johnny's videos on the series back in 2013. So don't be surprised if I reference his videos once or twice here. The story to The Legend of Zelda is similar to the story of the first Mario game. Well, kind of. In the land of Hyrule, there are these things known as the Triforce that possess magical and mystical powers. Ganon, the Prince of Darkness, obtains possession of the Triforce of Power by force. Princess Zelda, in an attempt to keep Ganon from dominating all of Hyrule, splits the Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces. Impa informs Link of what has happened. He decides to collect all 8 pieces of the Triforce, defeat Ganon, and save Zelda and the rest of Hyrule. It is a bit more complex than the Mario story, but we're not dealing with the Iliad here. We have to save the princess from an invading army of evil monsters that have taken over the princess's domain. Yeah, when you say it like that, it's just Mario's story again, just with a different coat of paint and some triangles. So The Legend of Zelda is an open-world action RPG. Yeah, I don't agree with that statement at all. I've heard a lot of people say over the years that The Legend of Zelda is a de facto RPG through a myriad of reasons. I don't agree at all, though. Despite there being no experience points or levels, heart containers and other equipment work essentially as de facto level ups. There are shops, NPCs, a silent protagonist, an inventory, the works. But if that is enough for you to consider a game to be an RPG, then Minecraft is more of an RPG than this game is. That game has a progression system deeper than the one in this game, which is also essentially like leveling up. You can buff yourself and debuff others with potions, which is a staple in the genre. There are NPCs you can barter with, you can see the damage that your weapons do, there's a silent protagonist, an inventory, you even have experience points and actual levels. This game is an RPG though. I would say that this game is more appropriately labeled as an action-adventure game. Now, if you want to make the argument that an action-adventure game and an action RPG are essentially the same thing, just with different names, then at that point we're just arguing over definitions and the conversation's kind of pointless. So, The Legend of Zelda is an open-world action-adventure game. Not the first one ever, but it might as well be from the perspective of modern gaming. You can go anywhere from the very beginning of the game, there's nothing stopping you from doing so. It's even more open than a game like Dragon Quest, since in that game you aren't going to get very far because of the higher leveled monsters. There are higher leveled monsters in Zelda like the Lynels, that will wreck your face if you encounter them too soon, but those enemies are way more easily avoided than anything in Dragon Quest, since that's random battles. There are shops to enter, secrets to be found, and secret shops to be found throughout Hyrule. This is one of Zelda's biggest claims to fame. Even to this day, the sense of freedom and openness is a lot of fun to experience. It's probably the best way an 8-bit game can depict an open world. It's fun navigating through this world with nothing but your will, your wit, and the in-game map. Yes, that is the in-game map. Well, fuck that. An external map is 100% necessary for traversing the world. Luckily, Miyamoto and the boys knew this, so they included a partial one in the manual. I would recommend getting a complete map, but more on that later. The game is so open that you can either start the first labyrinth with 3 hearts, a wooden sword, and nothing else, or you could start with the silver sword, the blue candle, bombs, the blue ring, the magic shield, and 6 hearts. Or you can even start it with no sword at all. It's all up to the player's ability to explore the world. Speaking of which, let's get into them. There are 8 labyrinths to traverse, with a boss battle at the end and a piece of the Triforce to collect. The labyrinths are a lot more straightforward than the overworld. Inside, you have a way better map that draws itself in your inventory as you progress through the dungeon. There's also an actual map that you can collect, and a compass that will show you where the Triforce is. Finding the entrance in the overworld gets progressively harder to do, and some you can't even find without certain items that you get from other labyrinths. So you can't do them in any order you want, but you still don't need to do them from 1 to 8. They do get more difficult as they go on, with the exception of 7, but you need the recorder to even enter it, which you get from 6, so you're probably not going to be doing that one first. There are also many items you can get, from boomerangs and bows to magic wands and red candles. Some are items you can use whenever, and others act more as context-sensitive upgrades, like the stepladder and raft. They aren't all needed to complete the game, but they are very useful, and some you might not want to get at all, like the Book of Magic. Once you get it, your magic wand will do less damage, but it will leave behind a fireball where the blast lands, so it's a trade-off. You can also find items in the overworld, like the blue ring, which doubles your defense, the power bracelet, which allows you to access warp points that will make traversing Hyrule a bit easier. We also get the magic shield, which blocks attacks that the normal shield can't. It also has a big cross on it. I might as well bring this up here. A lot of people have speculated that Miyamoto wanted the religion of Hyrule to be Christianity. I've never actually seen any proof of this, so that's why I'm saying it's speculation. Now that being said, the shield does have a cross, and some enemies also have crosses on their shield. The Book of Magic was just straight up called the Bible in the Japanese version. In the second game, there's a cross item. There's this piece of artwork that people say is official from the Link to the Past. And I mean, come on. The Triforce is just the Holy Trinity, since the Triforce is both the individual triangles and all three of them at once. Like how God is both the individual Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but also all three at once. Well, depending on who you ask, I'm pretty sure literal wars were fought over whether that was the case or not. I wonder if something similar happened in Hyrule over whether Hylia is also Din, Nehru, and Farore. Well, they don't really exist in this game, so, we're just kind of getting off track here. The point is that there's a lot of Christian imagery in early Zelda games. And I mean, it doesn't bother me, so I'm cool with it. If that's the case, though, that means we get the Father and the Son in this game, but the Holy Spirit got stuck in traffic, because the Triforce of Courage is absent until the next game. There's also a single power-up in the game. Unless you want to count the fairies as also being power-ups, then there's 2, but if not, then it's just 1, and it's the stopwatch. It freezes all the enemies on screen as long as you stay on the current screen. Power-ups aren't a regular thing for the Zelda series, so enjoy it while we're here. There's a wide variety of enemies, but they aren't all that different from each other. Most of them move around and shoot things, like Moblins and Octoroks and Lynels. Others just move around, like Tektites and Stalfos and Zols and Gels and Gibdos. There are some that are more interesting. Ropes will charge at you when they see you. Vire will split into Keese when killed. Wallmasters will take you to the beginning of the dungeon. Like-likes will consume your magic shield. Pole's voice could be beaten by blowing into the second controller's mic on the original Famicom, though you can do that in the NES version, unfortunately. Dark Nuts and Wizrobes are the hardest hands down, though. Dark Nuts can only be hit by the sides or the back, and they never stop moving. And the blue ones move even faster and hit harder. On paper, they aren't that complex of an enemy. In practice, you'll be facing a room full of them, which makes avoiding them almost impossible. Wizrobes might take the cake though. They teleport, shoot magic waves at you, and hit like a truck. The orange ones at least will stand still, but the blue ones will move around all the time. Both enemies can be hit with bombs, but nothing else other than the sword. No boomerang, no magic wand, no arrows, nothing. You can only move and stab your sword in 4 directions, which makes movement at times feel very limited. It isn't terrible, and you can get used to it, but Link's range of attack isn't very optimal. These two things combined can make combat, at times, frustrating, especially against these enemies. Unlike Mario, we have multiple bosses here. You can beat some of them just as fast as you can beat Bowser though. Gotta love 8-bit gaming. Aquamentus is a unicorn dragon that goes down very quickly if you have the silver sword. Dodongo can be fed bombs, or you can have bombs just go off around them to make them vulnerable to your sword. Manhandla completely got destroyed by a well-placed bomb. Gleeok is our first boss that might give you trouble. Its heads will detach and start attacking you once you kill them off. It's easy to get overwhelmed here. Digdogger is defeated first by playing the recorder, which shrinks him in size, and then he easily goes down with a few stabs. And Goma can be defeated by a single arrow. There is a blue variant that takes a few more shots, but the fight is pretty much the same. All the bosses are reused in other dungeons, some as main bosses and others as mini-bosses. We also have 2 that only appear as mini-bosses. That's Lambola and Patra. They aren't very remarkable. Ganon himself is an interesting fight. He remains invisible, teleports, and shoots magic at you throughout the fight. He can only be in a few locations, so you have a good idea of where he might be. It only takes a few hits for him to be done for, but only the silver arrows can actually end the fight. It's not a bad boss fight, but the silver arrows being needed to win rubs me the wrong way. I didn't bring up Labyrinth 9 earlier because I wanted to talk about it here. It's massive, has 2 items that are pretty much needed to beat the game, and there are a lot of rooms and paths that don't lead you anywhere you would want to be. This place is filled with whiz ropes, like legs and bubbles. On their own, they're not that difficult to deal with, but the combination of these enemies really makes it a pain. You can't use your sword for a short time if you get hit by the bubbles, you can't escape the like legs if you can't use your sword, you can't defend yourself against the whiz ropes if you don't have your magic shield. It's hell. The final dungeon should be challenging, but the path to Ganon isn't intuitive like it is in the other dungeons. The only reason why I didn't have that much of a hard time during the Let's Play was because somehow I had the general path memorized from the last time I played. The last time I played, I was wandering in there for over an hour, and that was before I just gave up and pulled out a map. No, not that one, I mean this one. My in-house rule was always to not use a map during the dungeons unless I was doing cleanup after beating the boss. This labyrinth was always the exception. Once you beat Ganon, you get to Zelda. You both raise your pieces of the Triforce and the day is saved. From there you can replay the game on hard mode, also known as the second quest. I've never done it, but I've seen it in action and it is very, very hard. Blue and red bubbles. I'll leave it at that. I bet you guys thought I was going to forget about the music again. Hell no. We ain't forgetting about this one, boys. Koji Kondo returns once again to give us a short but epic soundtrack. Very classic, very iconic, just like his work in Super Mario Bros. Unfortunately, the same kind of flaws keep on popping up with this man's work on the NES. There's not a lot of songs, so I don't know how I'm gonna edit this video, guys. The songs that are there, though, are very iconic, very suitable for the situation that you encounter them in. The overworld theme, an absolute classic. It's not as iconic as Mario's theme, but it's a pretty close second. The dungeon theme is very repetitive, but I don't really mind its repetitiveness. It fits the dungeon pretty well. The theme you get in Ganon's dungeon specifically is a nice little pace changer. It's not fantastic composition, but the fact that it's different makes the environment feel a little bit better. It makes it feel like the final challenge, basically. And then we get the credits theme. But I think the credits theme is really good. I like it a lot. It feels like a credits theme. Not much else to talk about in the soundtrack, because that's about it. There's a few little jingles here and there, but that's about it, boys. So, it sounds like this game has aged pretty well, with a handful of exceptions. Well, I have been holding back on some of the bigger flaws that this game has, that a lot of fans of this game like to simply ignore or downplay. With a more linear and structured game comes the possibility of the game being too strict, not letting the player leave the designated lane that the developers want them in, too much order. With a more open game comes the possibility of the game being too vague, without direction. You are put into a world and not given a good enough idea of where to go and what to do. Too much chaos. There is no indication whatsoever of where the secret shops might be located at all. There is no in-game reason why you would burn this bush and not every other bush. There is no reason why you would bomb this wall and not every other wall in search of secrets. Not only that, but there are some areas you can find that lead to detrimental outcomes. So even though this game is praised for the exploration it allows you to do, it can punish the player for doing so, and there is no way the player would have known beforehand. This is why I would recommend a map that shows you where all the secrets are. Now, I know some hardcore Zelda fans will say that's the wrong way to play this game, but a lot of those people haven't not known where those secrets are for decades. They either found those secrets themselves or had a friend tell them about it a long time ago. And the fact that the game comes with a map is their response to the critique that the game is too directionless anyway, so might as well use a good one. You're honestly not missing out on that much if you don't go in it blind. Exploring can still be fun. Figuring out the path you need to take to get what you want can still be fun. Burning every other bush you see to find a heart container isn't. Now, some places are alluded to in-game by NPCs. This is true, and when it's done well, I like it a lot. Overall though, I don't think they're that great, and a lot of them aren't clear at all. Like, Dodongo dislikes smoke. Sure, bombs make smoke, but so does fire. The secret is the tree at the dead end. The secret power is said to be in the arrow, or nothing. aren't the best way to communicate to the player. Is the secret power said to be in the arrow really the hint that will make you think of using the silver arrows on Ganon at the end? You can go to Ganon without the silver arrows. Why would you assume that you would need arrows other than the ones you already have? Why would you assume this hint has anything to do with Ganon? You find this old man in Dungeon 5 and probably already forgot about it by the time you reach the end. Master using it and you can have it. Yeah, that doesn't make much sense at all. Well, how are you supposed to get you need a certain amount of hearts out of master using it and you can have this? Complete nonsense. Nobody can defend that. Nobody can defend that part of the game at all. Massive cope if you're trying to defend that part of the game. Just no way. But nothing can beat the travesty of Grumble Grumble. Give him the meat. That's what he wants. I mean, come on. Surely it was obvious that Grumble Grumble translates to give me the expensive food that you can only acquire in a shop in the overworld, which you're not exactly sure on what it does without the manual, but you should have it in your inventory anyways. What's that? It wasn't. Well, fuck me. A lot of these things get overlooked or straight up justified by fans of this game. Almost no DQ fan will argue that the directionless nature of the first game is a positive thing, but Zelda fans will for this game. It gets a lot more leeway than other games do, even within the series itself. Case in point, the most well-known critique of Ocarina of Time flipped on its head and redirected towards the OG. I present to you, Egoraptor hates The Legend of Zelda.
So you can finally go out, have your world to enjoy. Okay, cool. But okay, you want me to talk to some old lady? Okay, then what? Oh, so go into this temple? Okay. Beat the temple? Okay. Listen, I'm not your fucking servant. Why do you give me this world to explore and have a good time in, and then you tell me to do these super specific things? Open doors but push blocks. Is that a puzzle? Like seriously, is that a puzzle? Is looking around the room and finding push blocks really super fun for people? Is stopping your forward motion, stopping everything to look for a push blocks that's in a soulless crevice in the wall so you can open a door that leads to another room with a locked door and some other silly open sesame trick? Is that fun? Is this what you want? Alright, let me explain something. A puzzle is something you have all the information for. The only thing standing between you and the solution is your own ability to put the pieces together in the right way. The satisfaction you obtain from solving a puzzle is from the aha moment, when the pieces fit and you have only yourself to blame for it. If you're missing a piece, how are you supposed to even get to a conclusion? You rack your brain, run in circles, go, what do I fucking do? Until you find the last piece on a whim and suddenly it all makes sense. You say, well shit! Or, come on! The satisfaction doesn't come from the door opening, it comes from the puzzle itself. If the puzzle itself isn't satisfying, well there you go. The puzzle itself isn't satisfying. You see, in the original Zelda, you'd walk into a room, the doors would lock, but 5 cape horse sword dude looking guys who are fucking hard as shit surround you. They follow you around. When they see you, you can only attack them from the sides or the back. You gotta find vantage points, ins, outs, manage your health, dodge them when they gang up. It's daunting. And because of all this, you're like, fucking finally the door. Is that a puzzle? Like seriously, is that a puzzle? The source of a lot of original Zelda problems is that the game's idea of difficulty is waiting. God! There's so much waiting in original Zelda. You gotta wait for a door to close. You gotta wait for a character to stop talking. Wait for the switch to make a music tone and open a door across the room. Wait for bombs to blow up. Waiting is the bane of exploration. Why would I want to explore in a world where I gotta waste useless time just to check a fucking room? They decide, hey, we're gonna streamline the dungeon process. Guess what? You enter a dungeon, halfway through, you get an item that helps you through the other half of the dungeon, and then you use that item on the boss to render it hittable. I mean, I get you probably liked this game as a kid, but isn't it time we looked at it critically and made a fair analysis of how— No!
There's a lot of fans of this game that consider it to be one of the best of the series, and some that would say that it's one of the best, period. But why this game? Why do people hold this game in such high regard? Is it because it was revolutionary? Because of the legacy it left behind? Possibly, but I never hear anyone argue that the original Super Mario Bros. Is the best Mario game. And that game, without a doubt, is just as revolutionary. So what does this game do that Mario doesn't? Well, I think it's a combination of factors. Number one is that this game is very contemporary when looking at when it came out. The idea of having a large open world to explore isn't a dead concept in gaming by a long shot. So it's very easy for people to get behind this idea. Not only that, but its execution isn't half bad either, especially when you compare it to games that came out before it. Number two is the legacy of games that came after it, both in the series itself and those that took inspiration from it. But I think the biggest factor of all, and I don't say this lightly, if you've heard me talk about this concept before, you know I hate the way that this term is overused by the masses. So, Believe me, if I could use any other term, I would be, but I can't, so I'm going to use this one. The biggest factor of all is that people have nostalgia for it. Now, this obviously exempts newer players from this, but I've seen a lot of people that praise this game very, very highly have a lot of nostalgic feelings for it. I used to not like Zelda, but that was before I ever played it. I never played Ocarina or Majora. I never heard of A Link to the Past. I know I had some idea of what the first game was because when I first saw The Binding of Isaac, my first thought was, oh, it's like Zelda. But I don't remember actually looking at the game until years later. It was basically that one series that's main character wasn't the name of the series. Whenever I mentioned that I never played a Zelda game before, I would always get these bombastic reactions out of people. How could you have not played a Zelda game? They're great. Zelda is so good. What is wrong with you? How? Zelda's like Mario's contemporary. It's like saying you never played a Mario game. Your childhood must have sucked. That last one is the one that always stuck in my mind. Since the your childhood sucked or you didn't have a childhood buzzword phrase thing was going around at the time. And if you know me, I hate buzzword phrases. I also took it very personally because, well, no, I had a very great upbringing, so fuck you for saying that, and in turn, fuck you, Zelda. It wasn't until I came across Some Call Me Johnny's video on Link's Awakening that I actually saw a Zelda game in action. I clicked on the video despite not liking the series at that point, and I'm so glad that I did. I liked his video so much that I went back and watched his other Zelda reviews, including of course his review of the original. It was entertaining, it was informative, I loved it. Hearing him talk about the Dark Nuts and the Wizroads was great. I was so shocked to see the in-game map, and the grumble grumble joke. Well, there's a reason why I directly copied it for this video. Those moments stuck with me so intensely that it's been 10 years since I first watched that video, and I'll still remember those moments just randomly out of nowhere. The way he says, well, fuck that, is the way that I say, well, fuck that to things. Directly because of that video. Those videos finally gave me an idea of what the series was actually like, and it finally made me go, huh, maybe I don't hate Zelda, it actually looks pretty cool. It wasn't a few years later until I was actually able to play the game, but I owe it to Johnny for making me a fan of the series. Out of all the Zelda games that I have played and beaten, I've had the most fun playing this one. Now that might be because I played A Link to the Past while following his Let's Play on Super Gaming Brothers, which might not be the ideal way to play that game. Perhaps when I revisit it for a Let's Play of my own, I'll prefer that one over this one, but as it stands now, this is my favorite Zelda game. So, it's Nintendo's number 2. How does it compare to Nintendo's number 1? Which of the OGs have aged better? I'm actually saving that answer for a future review. You can probably guess what game that review is going to be, but you know, my lips are sealed, but you can probably guess really easily. Yeah, this game has aged kind of okay-ish in some areas and pretty bad in others, but overall, I think it's a really fun game. I think that everybody should give it a try, at least once. Again, the people who say this game is just too old to enjoy at all are stupid, and the people that say that this is the best game ever made are delusional. It's a fun time. The combat can be fun, but frustrating. The design philosophy is interesting, but also can be frustrating. Again, it's kind of like this balancing act that the game does between, oh, this is really cool, and what were they thinking? Next time we Let's Play a Zelda game, it's going to be Zelda 2. Now, that's a game I've never actually beaten, so that'd be kind of cool. I gotta beat it before I start the Let's Play, though. That's kind of my personal policy, so yeah. But before then, we're going to be playing Tears of the Kingdom when that comes out, so yeah, that's going to be cool too. Alright, that's the end of the video. Leave a comment after the video's done premiering. Thank you for showing up. Why am I twitching like this? Did you like the microphone? Did you like this format? Yeah, this is I'm testing stuff out. Whether I should keep doing the reviews just like this, or more traditional scripted reviews. So let me know, which one did you like better? If you want to compare it to one of my past videos, I would recommend the Super Mario Brothers video, because it's really good. I would say it's my best video in the old format. Hopefully though, this video is pretty good as well. Alright, peace. And I mean, it doesn't bother me, so I'm cool with it. I actually kind of like it a little bit more, if I'm being honest.
It's the Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad. Octoroks, Tektites, Levers too. But with your help, our hero pulls through. Yeah, go Link, yeah, get Zelda. Awesome, intense.
The Nintendo Entertainment System. Your parents help you hook it up. The Legend of Zelda sold separate.